Good afternoon. My apologies for the delay. The This meeting is called to order on October 2nd at 1:40 p.m. Uh, so I'll start with some housekeeping business. If connectivity is lost and not regained after 30 minutes, the meeting is canceled or postponed. The public wishing to speak, please keep your camera off and on mute. Please raise your hand and the chair will be notified by one of the attendants. For those attending by Zoom, please select the raise hand button when you would like to provide comment. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute and unmute. When you're admitted to the meeting, please unmute yourself, state your name and affiliation, and speak. So that's order number one. Agenda item number one. Number two, introduction. My name is Darcy Oishi. I am the acting manager of the Plant Pest Control Branch and designated as chairperson of the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals. I'd like to start this meeting with introductions. Advisory Committee, please state your name, your affiliation, and if joining remotely, which I believe all of us are, if you are alone or if someone is in the room with you. I'll start off with agencies, DLNR.
Rob Hoff, Department of Land and Natural Resources. I am alone in my cubicle, but within earshot to my colleagues. I'm assuming that's okay.
That's fine. The office formerly known as OEQC, because I can never remember the new name.
It's a new alphabet soup. Tom Eisen here, representing the interim director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. And there's some low rumble of people in the background, but no one in the immediate vicinity.
And thank you, Tom, for joining us right after your vacation. University of Hawaii.
Aloha, my name is Maria Hawes. I'm with the University of Hawaii at Hilo. I'm alone in my office.
Fish and Wildlife.
This is Josh Fisher. I'm an invasive species biologist. And I am alone in my car, but my son will be joining me in 30 minutes. I can kick him out to the playground.
Okay. And last but not least, the Nature Conservancy.
Aloha, everybody. I'm Sam Ohugan, Senior Scientist with the Nature Conservancy of Hawaii and Palmyra Terrestrial Program. And no one is within arm's reach of me.
Great, thank you. So we have two items on the agenda for today. We'll be accepting public testimony on each item in the agenda. We will start with the first agenda item, which will be presented by Mr. Jonathan Ho regarding an interim rule change to Chapter 4-72. Mr. Ho.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Jonathan Ho. I'm the acting plant quarantine branch manager. I'd like to thank all of you for helping to get this meeting going. Obviously, this is a very important issue to continue to prevent the spread of CRB across the state. I guess to get straight to the discussion, I think I think everyone has the title for the request to for a finding from the committee to restrict the listed items, the palm plants, the decomposing plant material, landscaping material, erosion control socks to prevent the movement of CRB from Oahu. And that constitutes an emergency justifying the issuance of an interim rule. And then a secondary finding that this interim rule would be necessary to restrict those particular items to prevent the spread of CRB from Oahu to other uninfested areas within the state. Basically, Plant Quarantine is proposing to issue another interim rule to restrict the inter-island movement of specific palm plants in the genera Cocos, Livistonia, Phoenix, Pichardia, Roystonia, and Washingtonia. Decomposing plant materials such as compost, wood, and tree, wood or tree chips and mulch, plant propagation media, and other items composed of decomposing organic plant material, such as landscape material or erosion control socks, to prevent CRB movement from the island of Oahu to other islands within the state. HRS 158 9.5 gives the branch the ability, or the department the ability, to implement interim rules. As the committee is well aware, we did do another rule last year with the intent of establishing permanent rules to replace it. With the wildfires on Maui and Big Island, there is a exponential increase in the movement of green waste material, but of mulch and wood chip material for erosion control, for water quality management, and again, exponential spread or need for movement. And with that comes a severely increased possibility of CRB spread within those particular commodities. And as such, we're proposing to establish this interim rule to prevent CRB spread, particularly for those particular goods. And the proposed interim rule is attached. Should the committee find that this is an emergency and that interim rule is necessary to prevent the spread, we will be transferring this over to the chairperson for her approval. She will set the start date of the rule, and we will be publishing it in the paper for the effective date. But basically, it's effective upon the chair's signature, and then it's going to be published in the paper within 12 days after that. And then the rule is attached. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Sorry, my apologies. I lost my cursor and I couldn't unmute myself, but probably makes some people happy. Any questions from the committee or points of discussion? Josh.
Thanks. Just one question related to the term uninfested. Is there like a definition related to that for each island? Like if something is not uninfested?
Yeah, so we work with PPC, the Plant Pest Control Branch, to designate infestation levels, or to designate whether an area is infested or not, using systematic surveys. So right now, obviously, we do have that outbreak, I guess, on Kauai, but the department is working currently on a control eradication program for that particular population, and until it's deemed, a change from eradication to, control, then at that point, we would then, the island would be then deemed infested, and then the restriction would be, well, obviously we would have to change the regulation to prevent the spread from Kauai to the rest of the state. But as stated now within this rule, Oahu is the only island that's being deemed as infested, and all the other islands are not. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that did. I just was wondering, like, what clarified that, but it sounds like you guys make a determination based on a response. So, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Rob, do you have a question?
Yeah, Jonathan, I have a few questions here on the rule itself, but before I jump into those, I just wanted to ask, what happened with the Chapter 72 revisions that we commented on back in February. We were told at that point that those were being fast-tracked in order to get them in place before the previous interim rule expired, which it did in June 30th. And just would like kind of an update on where those, because my understanding was if that rule had gone in place, then that would have, that there were things in that rule revision that applied specifically to coconut rhinoceros beetle, and this wouldn't be necessary.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So there was a change in leadership, and then there was some potential concerns regarding the language in 72, not necessarily with regards to CRB. The branch is working to have the affected stakeholders be a little bit more involved with the particular rule as it is drafted now, prior to getting it to the governor for public hearing. My understanding is that discussion will be happening this month, and then everything will be presented for the governor for public hearing approval. The rule as it states now with regards to CRB itself is actually a little less restrictive actually than this interim rule. So during the public hearing process, we're going to have to add additional language to strengthen it for CRB, particularly with regards to this soil-free media type stuff. But so, I mean, obviously, so I guess there is some benefit with slowing it down a little bit. But yeah, we're hoping to get that done as soon as possible.
So the version that the Board of Agriculture approved after subsequently from our recommendation for approval is still going to go out to public hearing once the governor has signed off on that.
Our IT crews, why don't we let the deputy have his hand raised and answer these policy-related issues as it relates to Port Act 72. Thank you. Mr. Kishida, please introduce yourself to the committee, and then you can have your say.
Dexter Kishida, Deputy to the Chairperson, Hawaii Department of Agriculture. Thank you all for pulling this meeting together. I really appreciate you prioritizing this. To answer your question, Robert, there was a little bit of a pause. We are taking it to do some quick conversations with the agriculture industry before we move it on to full public comment. There's been some concerns expressed with certain parts, not the CRB portion, quite frankly, with some other portions of the rule change. But before we go to public comment, I want to fully understand where the industry is coming from and see if we can answer any questions from them, and then we'll go to public comment. But we just needed the CRB rule ASAP. And the reality is the rule change is still going to take 2.5 months, probably, is my estimate, to get through.
Okay, well, thanks for that update. That's good to hear that it's still on track to go out to public hearing, and we'll look forward to seeing it then. But I just wanted to see this, discuss this interim rule in the larger context of
course,
what's going on, since they're interrelated.
Tom, did you still have a question or comment?
It was actually similar to Rob's. Interested to see how this current thing relates to what we considered a year ago. But I pretty much understand from the explanation of the situation.
Okay, thank you. I know as the CRB guy, I do like the limitation on size per plant. So that's definitely a step up in terms of what we had previously reviewed for 4-72. Do we have any other questions or concerns?
As far as the existing language, I had a couple of questions. I guess I'll go ahead and start in. One of my questions kind of revolves around the sort of inter-island aspect of this. And I'm just curious as to whether you're not preempting yourself from setting a quarantine area on an island, say Maui, if it were to get established there and you did want to limit movement out of that area, And so I guess I'm wondering whether instead of inter-island movement, it should be movement out of designated infested areas. That is, in this case, it would be Oahu, but it seems like the focus on inter-island prevents you from utilizing this rule to prevent movement intra-island if there is a detection on another island.
So yeah, so the language here is written. It's written this way because, for all intents and purposes, the entire island of Oahu is infested, and managing movement at the ports is the most feasible based on the amount of staffing and the resources that we have available. That said, the rules do have the ability to expand quarantined areas, and by doing that, so the board basically can do it, and basically just needs advice from relevant people with relevant expertise. We can go straight to the board, and the board can designate an expanded infested area. And at that point, depending on, I guess, how you would define that particular area, it is possible to create, for all intents and purposes, this block of, this area or some way of designating a specific area. You could do that. There's nothing precluding your ability to do that in this regulation. Enforcement is going to be a different challenge from that. But like, say you had, this one, small, pocket, and it wasn't, containable or definable, we could expand the quarantine, and that would be for the permanent rule, or for this interim rule. That expansion of quarantine process is no different for either way.
So Jonathan, you're saying that this could happen, the board could modify this current interim, if this interim rule passes, the board could modify it for an intra-island purpose?
If the board so sees fit, that is correct. It can be done.
Would that have to go to P&A, or can it go straight to the board?
Yeah, so the language is it needs to be reviewed by individuals with expertise. So we could poll you folks outside of the process, but not necessarily. It's not required that P&A has a finding. The rule for a quarantine expansion actually specifically says that it need not be. I can find the specific language, but it specifically excludes P&A, or it doesn't require P&A. It's very specific.
And Jonathan, you're saying that the current language in this interim rule would allow for that?
Right. So the interim rule is so our authority is to prevent the movement of infested material. And what we're doing is designating the island of Oahu as infested and preventing movement between those areas. So if you have another area that is deemed infested, you define that area. This regulation still prevents movement of the same goods.
Okay, when I see the word inter-island, prohibits inter-island movement, to me that very specifically just means between islands, not within an island. And so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, that, if for some reason it made sense to try to restrict the movement of an outbreak area designated on the island, the board would still have that ability. I know for Oahu, when we initially got the infestation, we were kind of blessed at where it was because it was on the military base, which allowed some sort of control of what left that area. But there might be a situation where, there likely to be a situation where it wouldn't be on a base and where you might benefit by being able to restrict that movement. And I just want to make sure that with the current language that is in this rule, that the Board of Agriculture would still have the capacity to do that. And the only reason I question that, Jonathan, is because of the usage of the inter island phrase in this current rule.
I guess I would defer, to legal counsel, in terms of that. But I guess from the standpoint of managing, I think clarification, I think if we could change the term from movement instead of just, or remove the term inter-island.
Right.
And then
that's what I would propose, I guess.
And then if you just remove the term inter-island, it's movement from the island of Oahu to any other area, and then you could, I think, eliminate the ambiguity. I don't see that being
right. Well, how about
detrimental.
moving from an area known to be infested, which in this case you could define that as Oahu, to an area that is uninfested.
Yeah, okay. I don't see that being I believe that would work.
Okay.
That I don't see that being, we can make that adjustment. That's not a problem.
Thanks, Jonathan. And then I was just curious.
I just need to say that you have the honor of making the motion now, since you've made the modification.
Okay. Fair enough. The other question I had was regarding a couple of questions on the list of items. I know the previous rules have been broader in taxa, and just saying all palmaceous material. And so I was just curious how you guys came up with the genera that you're regulating, rather than a more broadly palmaceous plants or host material, which could be non-palmaceous plants too.
So the specific genera that were defined were the ones that we were regulating in the compliance agreements that were identified by the CRB folks. So I think it's all the broad-leaved, wide or the larger palms. That was my understanding in terms of why the restriction was specified to these particular ones. It wasn't every single species that was identified, because there's things like ironwood, for example, that are on the list for CRB hosts. I think this is what the research was showing as being the most high risk. That was my understanding of why these particular species were identified, and not every single palm.
Right. And then I just wanted to double check on whether plant propagation media would include things like garden soil or potting soil.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would regulate basically anything from Oahu, regardless of whether it's imported or not. So like if you went to Home Depot and you bought a bag of, imported stuff that was at their store, and then you wanted to move that inter-island, if it, for all intents and purposes, if it's been stored outside, it would be regulated. If it's just transiting, it's never been exposed to the environment, obviously there's no risk for infestation, so it wouldn't be regulated at that point. But for the most part, a retail establishment, for most folks, it's going to be basically treated as infested if it's leaving the island of Oahu.
Okay. And then finally, I just wanted to point out, I get it's probably just a typo, but under procedural background, the final sentence in the first paragraph, I think you have a double negative there. You need to rephrase that. No interim rule shall not be effective. I think it's this interim rule shall not be effective for more than a year. Yeah.
Thank you. You're right.
Any other questions from the committee? I see a lot of head nodding, saying no. Do I have a motion?
It's
Sorry,
all yours,
Darcy,
Rob.
Darcy, public comment.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Well, we have 2 comments from the public that we've received already, correct? We've got commentary from the coordinating group on alien pest species. I see we have attendees that represent CGAP. Does one of the CGAP's attendees want to provide a summation of their comments?
Chairman Darcy, we have Tia from the public that'd like to speak.
Okay. Taya, or let's go with Stephanie Easley first, if you don't mind, Taya, since I wanted to capture the CGAP's comments first. I'll get to you next, Taya. Kevin, can you?
Stephanie's promoted. Please introduce yourself, Stephanie.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Easley with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. As Darcy indicated, we submitted written comments. We talked about the Chapter 72 revisions, so I won't talk about that too much. I was very happy to hear the discussion you all just had about the possibility of changing it, or the possibility to use the authority to expand the designated infested area if it becomes necessary during the process. And so, Jonathan, the way I read it, like, the only thing that can be expanded is the designated infested area. So the island of Oahu should be like specifically designated as the infested area, and then the inner island should be taken out, and then it should be movement from an infested area to an uninfested area. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I understand where the I guess the ambiguity is, and we can refine the language to manage it so that it's very clear that it's from, you know, designated infested areas, not necessarily whether it's inner island or intra island or whatever. It's just movement from a designated infested area, which is designated as ABC, to any uninfested area, which is everywhere else in the state that isn't designated as infested. So yeah, it's very clear in my mind in terms of what we need to do to address that particular issue.
Awesome. And next, so again, the same type of thing, like in the 2022 rule and the proposed Chapter 72 revisions, the regulated material is CRB host material, and then it's followed by including, so an exclusive list of what's regulated. And I'm just wondering why that similar construction wasn't used here, because I mean, Maui is going to be such a huge undertaking, unprecedented. You know, things that have probably never been moved in bulk will be moved. And I was just curious as to why that was. And then my last question, I wish these rules were like regular rules, like in an outline instead of the narrative, but the way I read it, everything that's of the 6 genera, everything that is taller than 48 inches, total prohibition on moving from an infested area to an uninfested area. Anything that's shorter than 48 inches, and that list of items can move under a required permit, and the word is subject to inspection. And I'm wondering how, since the inspection isn't required and it's going to be an enormous volume of material, is that what was intended, and what the strategy is for that? And thanks for taking time to hear my comments. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
So I guess maybe a point of clarification. I guess for the regards to the inspection, everything requires an inspection in this interim rule prior to movement, and then potentially or I don't know if that's me with the background, but and in addition to the approved mitigation, which is for all intents and purposes at this point some form of treatment. So right now, that's really the way to go at this point, for particularly for like the soil-free media type stuff. Really, there is no inspection that you could do without destroying the product, that would be able to render a determination whether the stuff is apparently free or not. So at this point, you know, it's only it's only a treatment, and then we're going to have some storage issues with storage requirements for shipping inter island, but the inspection is going to be required. It's normally non-propagated material like that would be only subject to random inspection. So this gives the ability to permit and require inspections for all of that stuff. I hope that answers the question.
That's a great clarification. I wasn't sure what's subject to inspection, if it meant it would all be inspected or some of it. And then any, is just the idea of having it be CRB host material, including, and then listing all that stuff as was the precedent. Is there a reason for the change?
I don't know. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me look. I don't know. Give me a second. And
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. I mean that's the nature of the beast. And yeah, let me go and look into that, and then
We can come
yeah.
back to you, Jonathan.
And then Taya can testify, and whoever else wants to testify.
Okay. Yeah.
Taya, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Aloha, Chiroichi, members of the Advisory Committee for Plant and Animals. I am Taya Penniman, manager of the Maui Invasive Species Committee. I support approval of the proposed interim rule, the recent detection of a breeding population of CRB on Kauai, and the recent detection of coconut rhinoceros beetle-infested bag of compost at a major outlet on Maui underscore the importance of having an interim rule in place to prevent the spread of CRB from Oahu to other islands. I also urge the Hawaii Department of Agriculture to move expeditiously to adopt a final rule to ensure that permanent measures are in place to address this serious pest that threatens our agriculture, quality of life, and cultural treasures. While I am dismayed that we're having to do this, I also want to express my extreme gratitude for HDUA's expeditious movement on this issue. Mahalo for your work.
Thank you, Taya. Please. Any other comments from the public while Jonathan is speaking?
Yeah, so I looked at the rule, and I think, yeah, well, it's not, I guess Stephanie, you're right in that it's not, I guess, carbon copy from the way the rule is written. We took this, it looks like it's the same items, and it's kind of just formatted here to the way that we do interim rules. It doesn't list the exceptions like the original rule does with regards to CRB host material, but it looks like it's the same items. It's just, I think it might be just a formatting issue, at least in the quick look that I took.
So I have a question then, a follow-up question, Jonathan. So it doesn't say CRB host material, including, and then gives the list?
Yeah, so the rule, the proposed rule was written that way. That is correct. And then there were certain things, I think, in that particular rule, I think that like, for example, like that just said CRB host palms, and it basically there was no size limit, for example. So we're like, for example, in this rule, we're basically prohibiting, well, actually, we're not basically, we are prohibiting the movement of anything that's taller than, well, I guess from the frond to the soil level, that's 4 foot. So basically anything above that was basically uninspectable. So those aren't going to be able to move. So that's a
I grant
dispute.
I grant you that. I like that specificity, but I also like the coverage. It's a logical issue, right? When you say all CRB host material, including, then nobody can say, well, this wasn't included in the list, and bring that in. So by maintaining that same phraseology as in the original rule, it would be a simple change. Rob can make that part of his motion. We should be able to deal with that.
Yeah, I think if we just added that term prior to the reference to for example the hereby establishes interim rule to impose a quarantine on the following CRB host material, and then you list it, and then at that point, right, it's including but not limited to or something, and then it gives you a little bit more flexibility to manage, and then it's more in line with the way the rule is written, the way the rule is drafted as currently.
Yeah, I think so. And you wouldn't have to say the following. You would just say CRB host material and then
list
including. If there's no further public input, then Rob can craft his motion.
We have Christy Martin asking to speak to the board.
Awesome.
Christy, please introduce yourself.
Hello, Christy Martin, Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. Thank you so much for spending time on this and taking some questions, trying to work on getting the best language. My concern again is just to point to the list of palm species. I believe that, just even very quickly looking for the species of palms that are available in the state, many of them fall outside of some of these genera, and I just want to, I guess, just ask that you check one more time to make sure you have all of the palm species you need. I know that these are reflected in the proposed Chapter 72 rules, but just note that was done, all of that work was done a bit of time ago, and so if you wouldn't mind just checking one more time, because there's so many available. Mahalo.
And we had Stephanie. Did you still wanted to speak to the board?
No, sorry, accidental hand raise again.
Okay.
And I believe Tiffany is not present, but we did have testimony from Tiffany Kenny of the Koi invasive species committee supporting the interim rule change, but basically stating she would like an update on the 4-72 rule change. Do I have any further questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll give it a shot. I move that the advisory committee recommend to the Board of Agriculture the following amendments to the existing interim rule language. One, inserting all CRB material to the language on restricting movement. So that would be following restrict, an interim rule to restrict all CRB host material, including genera Cocos, Wilsonia, etc. And two, I jotted down some things during the discussion here, and I think that these can be covered by the following substitutes: by removing inter-island before movement throughout the findings, other materials, and proposed interim rule, and changing from the island of Oahu to from designated infested area of the island of Oahu, and changing, this is the third one, changing to other islands in the state, to another island in the state, or any other island in the state, to an uninfested area of the state throughout the document, throughout the proposed rule. I think that covers it.
Yes, you're gonna become the motion expert, Rob. Any second for the motion? Sam seconds. Any discussion?
I like your amendment. Although I wonder if it covers your point that if area on Maui should be designated as infested, that you would have to, like, someone would say, you said Oahu in the thing, right? I mean, currently Oahu is the only infested area.
Well,
But
I think to answer that, it would be a PPC determination of infested, correct, Jonathan?
Correct. What Rob stated, I see exactly where he's coming from with regards to, I think, right, the restriction is from an infested area to an uninfested area. We're designating Oahu as infested, and then all other areas in the state as uninfested. So I think if you add that particular sentence somewhere in this, it's very clear what is infested and what is not. And then obviously you're managing movement. So as or should additional areas become designated, the rule will cover them. So yeah, no, I know where Rob's coming from, and I know where, reading it quickly, as he was speaking, where the changes need to be made to ensure that that clarity is there and that there's no ambiguity in terms of whether it's inter-island or intra-island or what areas are infested or not. Yeah, I think when we make the changes, it'll be very clear with regards to that issue.
all right, I'm satisfied then. My
Okay.
second remains.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote then. Chair votes aye. DLNR,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Dr. Hawes,
Aye.
and Dr. Gahn.
Aye.
We have a unanimous. So Mr. Ho, you've got a interim rule pending chairperson signature.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time.
Real quick, Jonathan, was the zebra applicant gonna join us in?
Dr. Goody is, I see her
okay.
as an
I see
attendee.
her now.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Goody is there.
Josh, how are you on time?
I'm good.
Okay. Do we need to take a break or shall we push on?
Push on.
Push on.
Okay. Where are we in my script? We have for our second request, we have Ms. Putnam from the Plant Quarantine Branch for the zebra request. Noni, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair and members of the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. My name is Noni Putnam. I'm the Land Rights Specialist for the Hawaii Department of Agriculture Plant Quarantine Branch. And today I will be presenting the following request to allow the importation of up to 3 plain zebras, Equus burchellii, and Equus quagga burchellii, animals on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for non-commercial use in an animal sanctuary by Three Ring Ranch Inc. and update permit conditions for the importation of up to 3 plain zebras, animals on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for non-commercial use in an animal sanctuary by Three Ring Ranch. Please refer to the first PQB note located on page number 2 that states the PQB has previously approved an import permit for Ann Goody, Three Ring Ranch on January 7th, 2016 for 2 female zebras. You can refer to attachment 1. And then the PQB has previously approved a possession permit for Ann and Norman Goody, Three Ring Ranch on September 2nd, 1998 for 2 zebras and some other animals. Please refer to attachment 2 for that. For the category, plain zebras are on the list of restricted animals Part B pursuant to Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR, Chapter 4-71. Zebras may be imported into, this type of zebra may be imported into Hawaii for government use or private and commercial use, including research, zoological parks, or aquaculture production. Please refer to attachment 3 for the species proposed for import. Please refer to the second PQB note located on page 2, which states pursuant to section 4-71-2 HAR, private use means for use of non-commercial purposes such as nonprofit research and does not include individual possession of an animal as a pet. Animals on the list of restricted animals Part B are not necessarily available for import for all of the possible restricted B list purposes. Examples include private and commercial use, including research, zoological parks, or aquaculture production, but only for those restricted B list purposes determined appropriate by the board. For example, placement of an insect or bird on the list of restricted animals Part B does not of itself establish that the insect may be imported for private or commercial use or aquaculture. Certain organisms on the import list may not be appropriate for all import list purposes. Okay. Please note that the last post-entry inspection was conducted on June 20, 2023 for the recently imported non-human primates that Dr. Goody did receive. However, we are working with the Kona staff, or the Kona staff will be reaching out to Dr. Goody within the next couple of weeks to conduct another post-entry inspection of the zebra enclosure. Please refer to the next PQB note located on page 3, which states or gives examples of the different accreditations that she has. There's the GFAS as well as the ASA. So GFAS is the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and the ASA is the Animal Sanctuary Association. You can refer to attachment 4 and attachment 9 for those certificates and information. Okay, if you could please go to page 8, it shows a historical background. I just wanted to note that this historical background information was provided from the 2015 zebra submittal request. Okay. Moving along for advisory subcommittee review, this request was submitted to the advisory subcommittee on non-vertebrates for the review and recommendations. The advisory subcommittee recommendations are located on pages 9 through 10. I received a total of 4 out of 7 advisory subcommittee recommendations. And from the recommendations that I did receive, 3 recommended approval to allow the importation of 3 plain zebras, animals on the list of restricted animals Part B, by permit for non-commercial use in an animal sanctuary by Three Ring Ranch. And 1 advisory subcommittee member had no recommendations for approval or disapproval, however, provided comments, and the comments are listed in this section. Okay. For question number 2, I received a total number of 4 out of 7 advisory subcommittee recommendations, And from the recommendations that I did receive, 3 recommendations recommended, approval to update permit conditions for the importation of 3 fighting zebras, animals on the list of restricted animals Part B by permit for non-commercial use, and animal sanctuary by 3 Ring Ranch Inc. And 1 had no recommendations or comments. Please refer to those, the comments that was provided on pages 9 and 10. Just wanted to make a note that Dr. McKinney was unable to respond and provide a recommendation due to family emergency. And Dr. Lainey Berry from DLNR has left DLNR, I'm currently in contact with the Department of Land and Natural Resources to find a replacement for my advisory subcommittee. Okay, if we can move forward, if the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals could please turn to the proposed import conditions located on page 11. I'm gonna propose to amend import condition number 3 from only vasectomized or castrated males. Restricted articles may be imported to all male restricted articles shall be vasectomized, castrated, or rendered sterile. And then moving on, if we could please refer to the next PQB note, which is located on page 13, which states proposed import conditions number 17A was inserted based off of the USDA Animal Care Inspection Guide and General Inspection Procedures. Please refer to attachment 31 for the USDA Animal Care Inspection Guide and General Inspection Procedures Animal Guidelines. Previous conditions, the height of the fence was 5. However, it's now recommended not less than 6 feet high. So that was the main change regarding that one. Great. Okay. So thank you, advisory committee members, for your time. This concludes my section of the request, and PQB requests the advisory committee members' recommendations and comments. Please note that Dr. Ann Goody is present and available to answer any questions that you may have.
To the board, we have Joshua Fisher that would like to speak.
Thanks, Tony. Just one question related to condition 28. It indicates that the zebras imported would have a disease screening, and I just wanted to ensure that potentially that would include like the equine encephalitis. That.
So normally with any type of health requirements or so, we work with animal quarantine. Dr. Maeda is on my advisory subcommittee, so I can follow up with him after this and ask him about the equine encephalitis. Is there any other ones that you wanted me to touch on?
No, and excuse me, I don't know which one. I just know that there's a range of them, Western and Eastern, and so I saw that the shipments come from Colorado and Texas potentially, and so certainly I think those circulate in the southern U.S.
I will follow up with Dr. Maeda.
Thank you.
Rob, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start with Noni on this, and then maybe she'll pass it on to the applicant. But I was just curious, under section 6 on page 7, under alternatives, was the alternative considered to send the zebra in Hawaii to the mainland to join, or somewhere where there is already a herd of zebras? That seems like a far more cost-effective way to deal with this zebra's health.
So normally, as you guys know, the section from 2, or what is it, section 2 to the ending of page 6 is provided by the applicant. So I will defer to, I mean, that's a possible option if that's the recommendations of the advisory committee and board. But I will let Dr. Goody explain number 6 on page 7.
Chairman Darcy, we have Jonathan Ho and Ann Goody asking to speak. Who would you like to have first?
Let's have the applicant, Ms. Dr. Goody, come forth to respond to Mr. Hoff's question, please.
Ann Goody, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. This is Ann Goody here at Three Ring Ranch. Thank you for allowing me to speak on the behalf of this permit application. So there were several questions raised by you in this discussion regarding testing in advance, health screening and testing. In the past, both zebra imported were fully tested as you would test a horse. And they were quarantined after that test in California, which is where these would ship from. And they were quarantined until they were flown. And then once arrival, they were quarantined here on site. Blood was again drawn 72 hours after arrival, sent off and verified that they were disease-free. So we exceeded the request requirements for importation of other equines. As far as the second question, sending Patty to the mainland. So our remaining zebra Patty is now alone. On Monday, our elderly pony with Cushing's, who has been her companion for the last 5 years, had to be euthanized. So this is stressful for us, but we are providing for her emotional needs day by day at this time. By sending Patty away, it would decrease our ability to teach. We have resident programs for Hawaii youth, for Hawaii pre-vet students, and Hawaii second-year vet students. Many cases, this is the only opportunity young people from Hawaii have to get that vital hands-on experience in which to get into vet school. We currently have 100% success rate at our graduates being admitted to get their DVM. If we take away this aspect of the care over the animal and opportunity, we are losing one more aspect that we can teach these students that gives them a competitive edge at being admitted. And we all know how hard it is to get into vet school, much less how hard it is for our Hawaii students to have that opportunity to get in.
So if I can ask a clarifying question, in order to get into veterinarian school, it's required to administer treatment to a zebra?
Absolutely not. It's required to have hands-on, a variety of hands-on skills. The program that we offer here, residential program for our pre-vet students from our community, our islands, involves doing hands-on care, healthcare, behavioral care, observational care of a wide variety of species. When I write their letters of reference, it includes 2 pages of photographs of them with animals here providing care, along with a written narrative of the number of hours they've spent and what they've done. The wider an experience I can provide, the higher likelihood of their chance of getting their choice school.
So say administering similar care to a horse wouldn't be considered equivalent?
I don't think it would stand out as well because we have a difference in an equine, a horse, versus an equine of a zebra. A zebra is not a pony with stripes. They are a completely different creature in behavior, anatomy. I mean, that's the best I can say is they're not a pony with stripes.
Jonathan?
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, Jonathan Ho, Acting Manager, Plant Quarantine Branch. You guys can hear me? Okay. Yeah. So, to speak to the equine encephalitis issue, I went and looked, and animal industry has regulations, as Dr. Goody alluded to, regarding that particular disease. They have a set of rules specifically for that to ensure that the animals are going to not be affecting other equines. So the Dr. Goody is correct in that that she has procedures and that the requirements for AI do exist. So I think to answer Josh's question, yeah, they have a very specific set of regs to manage that, to ensure that obviously that disease doesn't get entered into the state. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the committee?
Noni would like to speak.
Sorry, I just wanted to just also mention, yeah, so normally, PQB or ranch works with animal, quarantine regarding, certain things. However, they regulate it, but we always work together to make sure that, the importer, whoever's importing a different type of animal, whatever type of animal it is, that they have the requirements to import it. But normally, they work directly with animal quarantine, and then we just work together to make sure everything is followed prior to importation.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Hawes?
Hey, aloha. I guess I have a two-part question. The first one is, it looks like you made some efforts to find a companion animal for the remaining zebra, but wouldn't it be worth making a few more attempts? It doesn't sound like it was, all the avenues were explored. And I think the other one would be that if the justification is to relieve stress of one sole survivor of the zebra herd, doesn't this imply that every time there's a sole remaining zebra, there'll be more importation just to satisfy that need to make the animal happy? Essentially, this is a request to establish a perpetual zebra herd. Thank you.
Dr. Goody, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would like to respond to that. So we have tried with a goat, we've tried with a pony, which was our partially successful attempt for the last couple of years. And what we had to do was divide the bedroom area with a pipe corral, because a zebra is much more aggressive than a pony. Even though the pony was larger than she would bully him and had to be separate for eating and sleeping. They could only be in the same area when they were out in pasture. Now, we've tried with the alpaca group, which she doesn't mind eating next to as long as they are not in the same area, because she thinks it's fun to chase them around and herd them. So I even brought out our larger gelding, our quarter horse, and brought him in next to her. She was quite fascinated with him, and he took one look and wanted to climb back into the trailer. So it's a very tough dynamic to try and introduce, and we have been doing this, and we are continuing to try to do this to at least provide social stimulation for her. When we first brought Patty in, when our other zebra was alone, it took 18 months of waiting until a rescue came up, because as a true sanctuary, we do not buy, sell, or breed. So we had to wait for an event where animals actually were in need. And during the meantime, we had people sitting at a table out there with her for 4 hours a day, just providing social interaction. We even had one of our board members who is an accountant do people's income taxes out there. I mean, it was very difficult to provide for those kind of needs that only another zebra can. Yes, to your question, Dr. Hawes, having zebra out here does provide an increased ability on our part to provide that education for our Hawaii students. While I cannot predict in perpetuity what that would look like, I can say that bringing out animals who are either not geriatric, which would be unsafe to fly, but fairly similar in a young age as Patty, would at least lead us to believe that we would have a herd that would go about the same time. I would hope there would always be zebra here at Three Ring Ranch, but that, of course, is going to be at the discretion of the Hawaii Department of Ag.
Paul?
Are there other zebras in the state of Hawaii?
There are not any more at this time.
Thank you.
Noni,
I gotta, I need to double check with that, but I think there's another facility that does have zebras, but I would need to double check with that.
okay, thank you. Dr. Goody, how long has Patty been alone?
Patty's been alone since Monday night.
Or maybe I should rephrase. How long has Patty been the sole zebra that Three Ring Ranch has in its possession?
I will have to go back and look in the records. I believe that's about 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay. And for plant quarantine, I know that the request is to allow importation. Does this imply that possession is, we need to be overt in requesting that we're seeking possession and that possession is under, is also being regulated?
My understanding, importation and possession, the permits cover that.
So you would not necessarily object to more overt language that would say allow importation and possession of up to 3 plain zebra?
I will follow the recommendations of the committee and we can update that.
Okay. And I was looking back and comparing permit conditions, Noni, and I noted that so I know the language is to import only sterilized males. And I noticed, and I'm assuming that there is a reason that there are some conflicts in permit conditions 6 and 16 relating to progeny. But I also note that in the prior permit conditions, there's significantly stronger language about reproduction being prohibited and controlling the reproduction and subsequent consequences if progeny should occur. Is there a reason we've changed the language?
I will need to double check on that. I thought these were the most updated conditions. These are the ones we used the last time, especially when we talked about progeny. Like question number 6 kind of covers it. So I thought that was, yeah, to me, that was what we agreed upon the last time.
The language from permit number 17-1-H-L5862 says, reproduction of the restricted articles is prohibited. The permittee shall use methods to control reproduction which can be verified by PQB personnel. In the event of any progeny, the progeny shall be shipped out of state at the earliest appropriate time at the permittee's expense.
Which condition was that again? I'm sorry.
That's permit condition 6. It is on, yeah. I'm not sure what attachment that was because it's all cut off on my printout here.
So that was the condition, I mean, that was the import condition from the 2015 submittal. So we do have similar to that. If you would want me to replace it or reword it and incorporate number 6 from the 2015 submittal, I can do that as well.
I like that it is very explicit on not permitting progeny and that there are consequences, what the consequences are to provide Dr. Goody clarity on what will happen should progeny occur. Dr. Goody, what is the status of Patty in terms of her reproductive health?
Patty has never been bred. We have no male animal here. She was put on birth control at one point, which made her considerably more aggressive. She was on an equine birth control pill. She now has no male animals anywhere around. Our burro, who's out front, is castrated, so there's no chance that he could get through a fence or get to her. Our fences are 6 foot 6 inches tall.
Okay.
So she has no option for reproduction.
Thank you. Do I have any additional questions from the committee? Do I have any comments from the public?
We have none at the moment.
Okay.
We have Jonathan who'd like to speak for the board.
Jonathan.
Yeah, so just real quick, I don't know, so in the existing conditions, you're right, Darcy, in that shucks, where did I put it? You are correct in that I'm sorry, I'm blocking myself. Yeah, you're correct in that the original conditions that, well, not the original, the conditions that were previously issued in 2015 had a specific condition, number 6, that specifically addressed on its own propagation or breeding. In these particular conditions, in condition number 1, there's the last sentence is release of the restricted articles into the environment or breeding is prohibited. It's not as clear, I guess, specifically with regards to it, but these conditions are pretty explicit. With regards to a penalty, condition, where is it? Where is it? Condition number 24. So like, any violation of the permit conditions may result in citation, permit cancellation, and enforcement, or any of all penalties set forth in 158.14. So, obviously, should Dr. Goody, try to breed these, she could be subject to a penalty, which would include cancellation, potentially shipping out of the animal. Obviously, we'd have to deal with those particular things on a case-by-case basis. But I think I think the conditions do kind of manage that. And again, I think if the committee, like Noni said, if the committee would like to see them to be a little bit more explicit, we can change the language to manage that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, to be honest, that permit condition 6, what was proposed by plant quarantine, it should be reversed, where all progeny are prohibited. That sentence should be the leading statement of that permit condition. Followed by the permittee shall immediately notify verbally and in writing of any progeny that should occur. And I think one of my concerns here is this isn't necessarily a statement I'm making about plant quarantine, right? But when we write a statement like safeguarding and final disposition of progeny, I immediately go to euthanasia when I hear final disposition. I think of something that's terminal.
Yeah, so for plant quarantine, that is correct. I guess destruction or euthanasia could be a disposition. Obviously, with an animal such as a zebra, I don't think that would be necessarily the first choice of a disposition. And, for us, final dispositions do include, potentially rehoming at another facility, such as the zoo, for example, if that was appropriate, or shipping something out of state. So it's written in such a way to create flexibility with regards to how you do it, but not necessarily limiting it one way or the other. But I could see the fact that there is that interpretational component, but the reality is dispositions, from the mission standpoint, right, are to ensure that they're either housed appropriately at a facility that is eligible for that restricted commodity, or the commodity is not held in the state. So, which again, shipping out. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
Chairman Darcy, we have Sam who'd like to speak to the board.
Dr. Gahn?
I apologize, but I have a hard stop at 3 o'clock as I have to go to another location.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion before we entertain a motion? So anyone want to volunteer to make a motion, or I will? Okay, I guess that's volunteering me. I'd like to approve the request to allow importation of up to 3. I'd like to change it to importation and possession of 3 plain zebras for non-commercial use. Inclusion of language. Rehome the zebra for non-commercial use. Update conditions to adjust permit condition 6 to reflect, Jonathan, what I discussed, just moving the sentence structure, the paragraph structure to include restricted article is all progeny are prohibited, blah, blah, blah. The permittee shall immediately notify PQB to reflect that language. And I'd like to basically also state that I would like to see in the future that we're not continually, as Dr. Hogg brought up, continually bringing in animals as companion to a lone animal that is doesn't play well with other species. I understand there's benefits for the medical and veterinary the veterinary community, but I don't see this as a tenable long-term solution. Do I have a second on this? I'm sorry, that commentary should not be taken as part of the motion. Do I have a second on the motion? Dr. Haas?
Sorry, are we not in discussion, or that comes after the motion?
It comes after the second.
Okay, sorry.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Josh seconds. Discussion?
May I go ahead?
Yes, Dr. Hall.
Okay, I just want to point out that even though I really appreciate the educational benefits of having exotic animals available to students of various types, I don't think that justification is strong enough to be continually bringing in wild animals to Hawaii. I feel really bad for Patty and the fact that her team is also suffering by trying to accommodate her stress. But, you know, to import wild animals also causes stress for those animals. If those animals themselves are not in danger, I don't see a justification to ship 2 or 3 more zebras out here just because one animal's already stressed. I think there could be other resolutions to this, and maybe more time should be given to trying to figure out how to accommodate Patty. Maybe there's other expertise needed. They could make recommendations. I don't know. I'm not a zebra expert myself, but I don't see putting 2 or 3 other animals at risk and creating this perpetual zebra herd. I just think, looking towards the future, I just don't think it's a good idea. Thanks.
Any further discussion from the committee? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote then. Rob?
Nay.
Tom?
Yay.
Josh?
Aye.
Dr. Hawes?
Nay.
Dr. Gahn?
Nay.
Okay, chair votes. Agree with Dr. Hawes, nay. Motion does not carry. So we'll be moving forward with no recommendation, a disapproval to the board. Okay, we're now at adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second?
I think you had 3 of them.
Yeah, second.
I saw Tom raise his hand first. Get back to recovery from his vacation. So we are adjourned then. Thank you. We're adjourned at 3:01 according to the internet on my computer.
Mahalo, everyone.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, everyone.
Okay, thank you all.